So what is it? What do you do?
I'm the county.
And then just whenever the click this end stream right here.
Okay.
And then you can turn the computer off and it'll figure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it saves it right to the channel, and then we can go back and edit it if we need to, or rewatch it anytime we need to. It's saved to the commissioner channel.
Sitting on the passenger seat of these.
Do you want me to pull up the document on this?
Couldn't tell if it was set or not. I got this back seat, you just, he's picked up or checked
It's
it.
just like opens it in like a my word pad or something
Just
like that.
maybe scour.
And then we, I got this call.
So this is
Yeah,
it.
mouse and scroll.
Yeah, and then you can use this
That's
mouse.
part of the-
Does that
I
got
don't-
page numbers?
It should.
Oh, like just to keep your fingers warm.
No, no, see, it's weird, but it does have a find
Just
option,
north of my house.
so you can search for
Well,
whatever word you're looking for.
Okay.
Clarify the snakes.
Yeah, it's weird.
That's
Oh,
what
I
I was
wonder
like,
if
I
you
hope
can
it
pull
wasn't
it up.
like last
We-
spring. It was like every once in a while.
You're not gonna edit it.
Put 6.9 millimeter rounds in the front seat, and then we had to take to the
No.
junkyard and buy them a new
Yeah.
suit or a truck.
When I converted it, word it went.
Okay. Right around Thanksgiving.
Oh, pardon?
Yeah. Let
You're up
me-
earlier, buddy.
So on that scour shot, they're not having a shortage.
No, yes.
That guy never talked to us. And we went back to the junkyard. He went and looked up, put it in. Oh, took the seat out of the back of the truck. Oh.
Oh.
You can pull up the web
Well, it
version,
would be cheaper.
which has.
I actually might have heard we put 2 rubber snakes in.
Oh, okay.
So that's what
Inside
the,
that push mobile.
that's what it looks like.
Maybe we ought to
And
use
I
that.
think, yeah, and, the table of contents,
Yeah.
and it takes you to that part.
Yeah, car seat will not stop.
That is your best option for this computer. And then the live stream is just in the background. So that'll just be going. as
So,
recording.
did you minimize that to get back to this?
Yeah, look, it's just, it's 2 pages that are open.
Okay.
So you can go between them if you need to.
This deal, she must have helped write
Okay.
this.
Perfect.
There's
Like
the,
that policy.
now, and if you, this chair might be easier, so you can look between the crowd and the computer.
Yeah, I did see. Ryan's
And I'll still be in here taking
This,
notes if you
I
need,
saw a picture.
however,
but this
whatever
one-
you need.
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna have to
figured
step out for a little bit.
Yeah, I was like, it looked more. It is.
Yeah, probably not. How did
It was good. It was really busy. But it was good. Mostly to Phoenix, but then we went north up to Sedona. So it was fun. We kept busy and saw just about everything we wanted to. Yeah. And then it was partly for farm credit too, so on the local advisory deal. So that's their annual meeting, so we had a bunch of meetings and stuff too. It was really interesting.
How many people are on that board?
Well, like Dillon Branch would have 6, 7 people. And then so every office has their own set of people. So like for our area it would be Missoula, Dillon, Bozeman. So I don't know.
I don't have it down.
That helps.
Yeah.
That's cool, Kevin.
Yeah, there'd be,
Somewhere around.
That's okay.
yeah, there's office in Great Falls,
Take effect here in a minute.
Conrad, maybe?
Well, maybe he was.
No, I want to keep everybody awake now. It's open. I do the whole.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I get kind of confused on all of this. Well, no, it's funny because one time they were kind of giving us a history of farm credit, and they're talking about like in the 80s, there was like 50 separate farm credits, like every office. was
Oh,
a
yeah.
farm credit. And with
Yeah,
the
but
disaster in the
precision
80s, they consolidated all of it, and a bunch
Yeah.
died out.
Okay.
Montana livestock, it used to be.
He gives out,
Most
yeah.
of them went
Oh,
out.
I placed it. No, I got master garden coming up tomorrow, starting next month. He's already out looking. I started advertising it at about 1 o'clock today, and I've got 6 people signed up already, so. I wasn't ready, I didn't think it was gonna be this enthusiastic.
Just go to the grocery
Well, then I was laughing, so we were in the airport coming home.
I didn't realize
And
people
this gal in
were
line
that interested in
in the
gardening around.
TSA in front of us
Everyone
was
needs help.
taking her time.
I guess so.
She's like, well, I'm
I'm
from
I
Sam.
don't know if they know
I was
that
like,
it's
oh,
an
okay,
8-week
well, I'm
course
fine.
and there's a volunteer commitment involved, but
One whole person's mom.
it's just one night a week.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh. And then she was telling me that your sister is married to her.
I was
Is that?
looking to see what the survey says. So
Like,
the
oh,
survey asks
okay.
like what
Yeah.
day, what time, and then figure out when.
I've met her briefly, yeah. Actually married her husband. Okay.
Yeah, so I've wired for, Rock's, are you going now? Murdoch's Rock Mountain Supply, I have one of mine. Brady, Womax, put one in Crane as an experiment.
Like, yeah, I think we're related. I didn't know, I mean, I.
Yeah.
Roughly.
Oh, that's something for tomorrow, I got some papers.
Well, that can't be the first time you've heard that.
Well, no, but usually it's a name I can recognize.
Dana signed up already.
It's usually not.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I gotta figure out where I
You work with volunteer.
Oh, okay.
Filling out.
Because I guess it's always.
I suggest.
He used to sit down and dig city.
Sit in the plant.
Was he doing it?
And there's, I've done programs in bars before, but they've always been like small bar area. Yeah, I have found it.
You never know what.
There are people who are
Yeah.
just there to eat lunch, and they're like, oh, well, this sounds good, and they just kind of want it. Listen here. I do, I'm trying to watch it over to stage planning. Marshall always showing me the crowd.
Sounds like your dad's eating without
Slowly. Yeah, he had, it turned out he had influenza A.
Yeah, the stage crunch stuff.
And he had it right before I was leaving. I was like, I'm trying to stay with my trip. I'm gonna be so mad.
I'm not speaking, I'm gonna be there. And I got.
But you told me that.
Yeah, I got, stayed away from him enough at least.
Yeah, I'll be there, but I'm talking, or at least I don't know.
Oh, Skylar's such a draft.
Yeah, I think
We're not going to see you, you can't see me.
Well, I don't know what this stuff going on.
You're just.
We'll have to be coffee,
Oh.
or be prepared.
I said,
Not too far.
like, I had nothing terrible. Oh, good, just
Opening some up.
Oh, okay, yeah, just got tired of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
headaches, that kind of stuff.
yeah. Well, kind of, I mean, that's how winter is, but like at Nationals, like there was a few days there that I felt like I had a cold, like while we were there. And then I got home and actually got rested up, I was like, oh, no, I'm fine. And then like I keep getting this like,
Big
I
problem.
feel like I have days like kind of goes up, and I'm like, okay, that's fine.
Oh, it's on the table right there next to the sign.
I don't know.
I was just,
Yeah, so it's part of the same.
But-
Cow.
And Caitlin and.
Like, it's either a
Oh.
cow or
lucky so far.
Wow. Yeah.
Parrot.
And he's like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can pass that around. I got a sign-up sheet here for everybody, so we'll pass that around if you don't mind putting your name on it. We got a few more minutes here, like 3 minutes or something. We're good going. I got an attendance sheet here, so I'm gonna take attendance, keep track of that. Everybody did one last time, so. Robert Van Turner.
Here.
Bill Allen,
Here.
Travis Hansen,
Here.
Mark Scott,
Here.
J.S. Turner, Alan Conover, Troy Smith,
Here.
Keith Martinelli, or Martinelli. Here. Kathy Heller.
Yep.
Colin Peterson.
Here.
Cassie Duffner.
Here.
Tony Johnson.
Here.
Robert Dischards. Is that right?
I don't see him.
Not here. Sean Claffey.
Here.
Mark Stossy.
Here.
Robert Gunderson.
Here.
John Harrison.
Here.
Nancy Conover.
Here.
Gary White. And somebody's on the phone. Cool, thank you. So, before we get into the soils, Dana sent out to everybody the demographics that came out from MACO, Montana Association County, and then National Association of Counties. That information up there, currently, if you look under Beaverhead County, if you look at the current growth policy or the resource plan, I'm sorry, 1.47 persons per square mile. The new information that's out there is 1.69 persons per square mile. We've got and I don't know why this is different. It says the county covers an area of 5,560 square miles. But under the county details that came out in the demographics that Dana sent out, it says there's 5,543 square miles, so I don't know where the other 17 miles went. Maybe went to Jefferson or Madison or something. Anyway, so what I did was I took the growth policy, this up here, I don't have the ability to make those changes on this document. We have one on a PDF form. I converted the resource plan from PDF to Word. So I've made those changes of the demographics that came out of the new information that Dana sent out from NACO. So those changes I've made within the document. If you go to the next, get the right mouse here. I think it's on this next one, above custom and culture. So I don't have I actually don't have The lack of growth, diversification in the county's economy is reflected in a declining real income and earned income and outmigration of young working age groups and declining business activity. So what that new information that's in the demographics that was sent out, it shows that Beaverhead County has a 25.7% lower than the national average in real income. And that's kind of important when we go to coordinating with the federal agencies, is they need to look at communities that are depressed and try to assist them in increasing their economies. Gotcha, JS. So I inserted that information, 25.7% lower than the national average in real income, and that's included in that NACO document, which is this document. I think you sent it out to everybody, didn't you?
I think I only sent it to you. I didn't get it.
Might have you send that to everybody on the committee. County economies under the hood of national economic trends. So this is a national document out of National Association of Counties. This is based on the census. So for the most part, well, in real demographics for all over the nation, the newest information we're going to have is 2020 from the census. And so that's probably brought out and published. I think this came out in 2022. So we're not going to get new demographics till 2032, but the 2010, I don't know where those demographics came from. It's not in here, but I just think we should update this to the newest information we have from the census. And I think what we'll do at the end is we'll include this in an appendix so that when federal agencies and the county are coordinating together, that information is in the resource plan, which the federal managers can access and look at.
Carry on that, updating with the new information, would it also be worth it to look at a trend or some sort of comparison of the 2010 information and the current information? And I'm saying it's totally ignorant of demographics and all this, but it seems like there might be something, a story to be told there possibly.
Yeah, this actually does show trends going back to 2017, so like 8 years back. So it's showing a trend. It's not like a ladder going up. It looks like it goes, as commodity prices and, timber and mining, resource, recreation changes within the county and stuff. And then, of course, we got hit by COVID, so that made a big difference on
I suppose if you just reference
effects
that.
and stuff. But this document does have trends within it on that information.
So
And if
you
we keep that as an appendix,
Yeah,
then we'll have that.
can also use the Headwaters economics reports, which they're available. And they do have 2010 data, and so they do a comparison with the 2010 to the most recent, just so you know that.
Yeah, I know I'm familiar with Headwaters. We can look at their data set and how they arrived at that data. I'm more inclined to use the University of Montana Business and Economic Research, and then also nationally, National Association of Counties, rather than private firm, used public institution. Sometimes it might have more validity or that way. So also within this economics is, which I've added to it says declining business activity. I put a sentence at the end, and I'll make sure everybody gets an update of what I inserted in here, but I put Beaverhead County experienced a 9% population growth between 2010 and 2020. So that's with the census that's out there, a little bit less than 1% per year in population growth within the county. And then that's reflected in going from 1.47 persons per square mile to 1.69 persons per square mile. So that's been inserted.
Is that specific to an age group? Is that broken down into like a working age group, a retired age group?
That's total population growth. Yeah. And I'll have Dana, she'll send that out and you can take a look at that. I just inserted that stuff in there because, sometimes it doesn't always match. for some reason. Okay, custom culture. Access. So there's a discrepancy in here that I wanted to clear up. If you look at this line right here, it says the federal government owns 59% of the 3.55 million acres of land in Beaverhead County. Then, when you go down here, you'll see that below here, it says, in the case of federally managed land, managers are required. We should be consistent that these are federal land managers. Ownership of land by the federal government is restricted in the Constitution as to what they can own. They are the land manager agency. And so up in here where it says that they own, I put the federal government manages 59% of the land, and then the state of Montana, they do own land. They purchase land, they've got state parks, they've got wildlife management areas and stuff. But anyway, there's only 31% left of Beaverhead County that is privately owned. There was some questions. I think that's, oh, I did add one other thing here. When you go to, let's see, where it says in recent years, recreational use of land in Beaverhead County has grown. Montana out-of-state visitors flock to the county for all types of recreation, including, it's got snowmobile, skiing, horseback riding, hiking, prospecting, fishing, hunting, camping, and other outdoor activities. So when I look at, there's another document that I'm gonna insert, if it's okay with the committee. Now this came out in November of 2023, and this is from the Bureau of Economic Analysis. So this is a national government agency, that Bureau of Economic Analysis, that analyzes the economies all over the nation. They take and they break out the states. This is the one specifically for Montana. When I look at the national, and the reason I'm grabbing national data is because we're talking about nationally managed public lands, belongs to the entire nation. And so what the nation, what are they using our public lands for? Outdoor recreation by activity. That's probably surprising, but I want to include this information in the appendix. Number one, largest recreational activity is RVing nationally. Boating and fishing is second. Motorcycle and ATVing is third nationally. We're seeing exponential growth, according, to this document. ATV, motorized recreation, has almost doubled in the last 4 years, according to this. And when you look at the number of hunting and fishing, those numbers have actually remained stagnant. They're still high, but like Sean, when you talk about the trends, and we talk about the resource plan and planning for the future, those trends are going to continue. And so the resource plan should plan for that in coordinating with the federal agencies who are responsible for 60% of land in Beaverhead, which has a great deal of impact upon the economy and your tax base, to provide the services for the people of Beaverhead County. It has a big impact. So the only thing that I changed on that was with snowmobiling, I added those 2 groups in there, including RVs, OHVs, snowmobiling, skiing, horseback riding, hiking. I added OHVs and RVs within those activities so that when the county goes to the Forest Service, we need to provide for a managed recreational motorized OHV. I think at the last meeting I heard, actually about almost a year ago, the Forest Service started on travel planning. Madison has travel planning. Beaverhead County does not. Jefferson County does not. Many counties that are within the Beaverhead Deer Lodge National Forest have not implemented travel planning. The Forest Service said they will. We need to do travel planning in order to have a managed recreational opportunity for the motorized community out there. Mechanized, e-bikes, all of these things are growing. So the Forest Service I sit on the Beaverhead Deer Lodge Working Group, meets in Butte, and the Forest Service, the new forest supervisor, came to the last meeting up there. They had canceled travel planning because they didn't have the money to do it. I don't know if they're going to have the money to do it going forward because of the new administration and all the changes that are happening. But he did commit to starting that travel planning process again in January. So this document will be very helpful in working with the Forest Service and coordinating with the Forest Service in completing that travel management effort that they're going to start on.
Could we add boating to the list? Because that was on your fishing and boating or some of the stuff, but I didn't.
Let's do that.
Okay.
They're actually number 2 they're not a growing, but they're high up for use. There's a lot of people out there. Let's see, hiking, fishing's on here. Let's just add boating. Yeah. So I'll make a note of that. Like I said, I can't manipulate that document and type that stuff in because it's in a PDF. So, okay, so those, and I think with those changes, that's kind of in the preference of the document before you get to the different subgroups. So one other, the purpose of the plan dynamic document, there's 6 bullet points here. So total personal income by major component, full part-time employment, industry, transfer of payments by major component, farm income and expenses, total population, population by age categories, and household by type. Those are the demographics in the document that will be updated as we go forward, which we've already done quite a bit of that with these economic analysis that will be included in the appendix. And I think I've kind of gone through everything. I think I kind of updated everything as to population, people per square mile, and things like that. So with what I brought to the committee, is there any objection on anything that I'm proposing?
No objection, I just, in line, we got a lot of mountain bikers coming through on the Continental Bike Trail, we want to include that.
Yeah, I agree. Mountain
It's-
bikers and e-bikes.
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah.
And there again, those are I'm gonna put in with the boating, mountain biking,
Yeah, just the Continental Divide Trail adds a lot to that.
CDST.
That scatters that out all across, 3 sides of our county almost.
Yeah,
Because you'll run into them everywhere, Lost Trail, MI Pass, or, wherever they can tie into a road if they need to go get wood supplied or whatever.
some of that CDST is motorized, which the Forest Service, that's e-bikes. Some of it's non-motorized, and the Forest Service prohibits e-bikes. Are you seeing a lot of e-bikes coming
I've
off
seen
that
more
trail?
hikers than I have e-bikes in the ground that I've been.
I'm seeing more just regular mountain biking still. I'm still not seeing e-bikes.
Not a lot of e-bikes. I mean, those long distance like that, some of those e-bikes are good for 35 miles or something. So you go in 17, back out 17, you might be pushing the last mile. So I'll just put the mountain bikes in there and we'll leave the e-bikes out. And that's not consistent either between agencies. BLM, well, there's 3 types of e-bikes, pedal assist and then full electric. So anyway, the pedal assist, they allow them on non-motorized trails, they allow them in the park. But the Forest Service, even pedal assist e-bikes, they don't allow them on any non-motorized trail that a mountain biker would be allowed on. So, I mean, it's kind of frustrating too between the agencies when they don't have consistent rules. It's also frustrating when we're out riding and stuff, they don't have consistent signage. And that's something I think we should try to get the BLM and the Forest Service to have some sort of consistency with their signage. You see, each one of them has a signage handbook on what they can and cannot use and how their signage is. But I know, like places like Pipestone up there, you get off the Forest Service on the BLM and it's a completely different numbering system. So, but anyway, there should be some consistency. Hopefully we can help the county urge the land managers.
Can we get consistency with the state too? It's a big ask, but I haven't run into bikers hiking the trails at Bannock State Park, for instance, but I have over at Lewis and Clark State Park. And personally as a hiker, I don't want to run into a bike coming at me fast down a hill. I personally think I've got right away, but he's going faster,
What
Anyway.
the state, what they do, and they create, and I didn't bring it with me, it's on my desk at home, and they have the score, which they last completed, I want to say in 2022, maybe 2020. And the SCORP is called Statewide Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan. And within that SCORP is guidance for state agencies, Fish, Wildlife and Parks and DNRC, on how they will provide, accommodate amenities and stuff for outdoor recreation. And that's state parks, wildlife management areas, and land that they own. So I'll take a look within the SCORP document, the new one, and see if they have anything on signage, and maybe get a hold of, FWP would be the best one, to see if we can try to work with the federal land managers to get some sort of consistency on signage, because I know it can be very frustrating to find out where you're at and stuff. You know, if most people are using awnings and stuff, you're not really gonna get lost, like you used to. But at the same time, you like to have some consistency on signage. So is there any other, no objections on putting what I've done on the demographics, and then Dana will send out the information from NACO, and I'll actually get you the link for the Bureau of Economic Analysis so that you can get that out. And within that larger document on the BEA is specific to Montana. So, articles here, it's over here. I guess 5.8, 5.9 billion. And when we get to the recreation portion of the document, that'll be inserted to show the growth of that. Okay, now. Come on. Get down here. So within this resource plan, the county has set out their objectives. And those are pretty much set. If you want the county to change their objectives within the resource plan, that would take an action by the county commission. It's not something this committee doesn't have the authority to do. So when they go to, as this document is finalized from this committee, it'll go to the county commission, and they have a public hearing tentatively planned, Dana, I believe, in April.
I think y'all have meetings through April, so it would probably be in May.
Probably in May. So the process for that is county commission will pass a resolution to adopt. They'll hold a public hearing. And then they'll make a decision on any changes within the plan and adopt it, formally adopt it. And then they will use that to coordinate. The basis of the resource plan is to satisfy 40 CFR, which is Code of Federal Regulations, in local governments, state governments too, like Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. When federal land managers make a decision, they coordinate with Fish, Wildlife, and Parks as a coordinating agency, but local governments, county commissioners, water districts, school boards, any elected body with a budget and spending authority has the ability to coordinate with federal agencies on climate actions. The county being responsible for the health, safety, and welfare and have an adopted resource plan. These other entities like the school board or the water conservation district, those would need to have a resource plan because under 40 CFR, you're required to have a resource plan. So I just say that because the purpose of this is to support the county in coordinating with federal land managers to support economics and the well-being of the citizens of the county. So a lot of the stuff that's in here is already in the growth policy, which was adopted in 2022 by the commission. And they have goals and objectives within the growth policy. This is more specific to federally managed land, which is 60% of the county. So as we go through this, this will have their objectives. And you read through them: support agriculture, ensure agriculture and grazing lands remain available, support national energy needs, recognize protect private property rights, federal and state land resources. And that's, right-of-ways, grazing permits, water rights. Those are in state water. Leases, contracts, recreation use permit, and all of those. So these are the objectives of the county. And their main objective, and it's mentioned in the resource plan many times, is multiple use and sustained yield. 1960, they passed the Multiple Use Sustained Yield Act. We also have the Taylor Grazing Act. We also have the Mining Act in 1866. We have the Organic Act. We have the Enabling Act when we became a state. All of those things are actually in the appendix. Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, Endangered Species Act. All of those are listed at the very back of the the resource plan as appendix documents that can be referred to by the federal agencies. They full well know what they have to follow, and it's a whole bunch. I don't want their job. They do that for sure. So anyway, I think Dana sent out a schedule, and this particular meeting, we're going to do soils, air quality, water resources, forage allocation, and livestock tourism. So we'll get down here and we'll start with soils. Did everybody have a chance to look at the soil bullet points in the document? Is there anything in the soils that
Put together that little bit of information, want me to pass it around?
I think we'll wait till the grazing on that.
Kind of pertains to all of it, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, for the forage stuff. I guess I would say I got a kind of a word of caution to the committee. I would hate to see and this is your committee, I'm just wondering, but I would hate to see people on the committee pointing fingers at other sections in here and criticizing or condemning them or blaming them for something. When it goes to the federal agencies and the county commission to try to support economic development, the federal agencies can come back and say, well, even within your committee, there was divisive division. And I think it's more powerful if we can all be together on what we're trying to do for the county and help the county commission moving forward. So just a word of caution. It's up to you guys. This is your committee and what you want to put in this update. But, you know, if we start criticizing grazers, or we start criticizing timber, or we start criticizing open pit mining, and we start criticizing solar panels, and we start criticizing windmills, and we start, you know, if there's division within the committee, sometimes it's not very helpful for the county to be able to all of the above develop and keep all of those uses. So that's just a word of caution. It's up to you guys what you want to do.
Yeah, can I make a comment?
Yes,
Yeah.
you bet.
You know, it seems pretty inclusive the way it is, and it's actually way more, to me, it looks way more inclusive than I think the federal government even recognizes. So I think if we do make any changes or anything, there has to be pretty good reason, because I outlined some baseline stuff I thought people should look at to make decisions. Then when I went through and read it all, every concern, every action or interest I could find was pretty much already covered. And then furthermore, I thought, geez, I wish I had this document a few years ago, because I had several issues with the federal agencies losing water rights, grazing rights, and use of timber on property. And I realized that, you know, if I had this at the time, it might have helped. But in my case anyway, you know, even as thorough and comprehensive as this is, in my case, they didn't respect it at all. I wasn't aware of this, and, you know, they just said, no, we're taking water rights and this and that. And so my question is, like you say, if we're gonna go to any effort to even make it in more detail, what teeth does this have? I mean, other than just recommending to our county commissioners, is there any way we can use this? Or is there any enforcement action that we can hold the federal agencies accountable? Because I really like everything that the county's proposing, but it's not in action, you know, today in the federal lands.
This book, I think Commissioner McGinley mentioned this to everybody, and I think there was a link handed out. County governments and USDA Forest Service, and this works with the BLM too. Prior to this document being written with National Association of Counties, the federal agencies and regional supervisors, forest supervisors, district rangers, all the way down, had absolutely no clue what they were required to do under 40 CFR, which is coordinate with the local governments. And so when this book came out, this was a handbook that was given to all the Forest Service land managers, all the way up to the top, even to Undersecretary of Agriculture, which is the head of the Chief of the Forest Service. Chief of the Forest Service answers to the Undersecretary of Agriculture. We haven't got a new one confirmed, but I think we will, Secretary of Agriculture. But the basis of this is that if we have a resource plan that says we're going to protect water rights, we're going to protect grazing rights under Multi-Use Sustained Yield Act or Taylor Grazing Act or something, whatever. When they do their plan going forward, the Forest Service is required to make their plan as consistent as possible with this plan. If they can't be consistent with this, in their final document, Record of Decision, the ROD, in their final document, they have to explain to the county commission, to the local government who's coordinating with them, why they can't be consistent. They have to be consistent unless them being consistent violates some law, in which they can quote back to the county and say, well, we can't cut trees over here because we've got a turtle. And it's protected under the Endangered Species Act, so you're not gonna cut any trees. So they would use the Endangered Species Act and tell the county, we can't do any fuel reduction project here, we can't do any fire breaks, we can't protect this transmission line. They have to tell the county. So my point is that today we have more teeth than we
Maybe
give.
more.
So the objectives within this plan, what I'd like to see, and this is what everybody on this committee can help with, is that science is an ever-changing, evolving study out there. And there's new studies all the time. So if we have studies that show we can increase soil productivity by some action, and maybe it's grazing, increases soil productivity, then we show then we would be able to show the Forest Service in the resource plan with an appendix of a study that shows the benefit of the objective of the county. Within this plan right now, I think this plan has, I think I got the whole plan, but I'm not sure. It has a bunch of lists of, I don't think it's, I don't have that printed off, but in the back, it has a list of like the multi-use sustained yield act, the tailored grazing act, and all of those things that the Forest Service knows they have to do. But if there is studies or information, because when the county coordinates with the federal agency, they say, we want this, but what science, what's the best available science out there that supports the county's position? To me, if we can provide that as an appendix, as a link, if there's a study out there that is valuable in supporting the county's objective in coordinating with the Forest Service or the BLM, I would like that added in the resource plan. If there's, objection to putting that stuff in there. What I don't want to see, and it's up to the committee, I don't really want to see a study at the end that shows how livestock raising is detrimental to land,
I think it's good to leave it open-ended, if we don't get the, I don't think, like you say, you want to get too pointed. I think the county wants to support the science and we want to support the economy, support the science, and I like the way, this is pretty straightforward and open-ended, and I think what you're saying is we need to avoid adding too much detail that could be scrutinized.
Right.
Because science always changes, and so I didn't see any problems, I think it's fine the way it is. I'm just not sure the feds have read it.
Well, if I could tell you, I'm wrapping up my master's in environmental law and policy. So the past 2 years, I've been studying like county planning and stuff. And I will say, like, these hold up in court. The people win when this is in place. Like, these are strong. They're so valuable. And the higher up in the courts you go, the more the little guy wins when they have these in place. So I will say they have teeth kind of higher up in the courts we get.
Because they're re-adjudicating the water rights and they're starting at the top. Now, I was actually the first water right. And it's the Bureau of Reclamation that's coming in for the reservoirs. And if you can't, they came at me with 3 lawyers for 2 years. I'm not gonna hire a lawyer. If you can't defend your water,
Yeah.
they're gonna take it.
It's a problem.
And they took 2/3 of my water and, I'm just wondering if there's a way we can use this.
Well,
where
you
the-
can, yeah. I mean, this forces
I
your
didn't have it.
commissioners to help you. That's the other thing. This protects you as well, and you can come in here and say,
And that's important, and I think it's covered in there, it just
So,
needs to be used.
well, I think it's covered too. So the soils ones I thought was pretty good. I've been looking at other counties, especially like in Wyoming, I found some really good examples, I thought. And I think it's really basically a generational thing. This is from 2010, they were from 2022. I saw some exact cut and copies, so I don't know if this is an early one and they're fast followers. I saw other things where they changed it, and one of the things, I think you used the word objective, and one of the key things that to me helps, and maybe you would say the same thing, but it would be interesting to have your input from a law perspective, is in the other ones that I thought were really excellent, instead of just having a big list, they gave a little overview, so you knew what you were talking about. Okay, that's just an extra, but you use the word objective, and so instead of saying the position, which says where you are, doesn't say what you're trying to achieve. An objective is actually telling you what you're trying to achieve. And I like that in those that they had, these are the objectives. The objectives are, like in this one, I would say probably the resource management objectives for soils is to maintain the productivity and fertility of Beaverhead County soils, as they are critical to sustaining a viable agricultural economy, wildlife populations, and high-quality air and water resources. Okay? It's in there below, but it's lost. And so I think in soils, the key thing may be to pull out what the key objectives are. And the other one I said, the other objective was to protect the county soils from wind and water erosion. Okay? And then you've got the priorities, which are more about how you work with the NRCS, how they're gonna be, anyway, it's mostly there, but it's actually extracting and maybe using slightly different word to make it clear. This is what's important. These are our priorities. This is what our objectives are. If you can meet our objectives by some other way that's not one of our priorities, great. But here's our objectives. And if you can't measure against our objectives, then you're going to have to go back and do something different. I don't know if that would help in court cases or not. I'm just thinking of what I saw in other places.
Yeah, I mean, language matters. Like sometimes it does come down to analyzing a word of position or objective for sure. I don't know specific. I mean, I have no opinion one way or the other than yes.
The last bullet is kind of an objective versus
Yeah,
a
and that's-
position.
Exactly, and I actually sort of moved that to, what we want to do is maintain it. And change that last one to actually a different way of writing it, which is says that priority is that management programs and initiatives should improve watersheds, forests, and increase forage for the benefit of wildlife and livestock.
So,
So you just move the words around, but I think, like you say, the concepts are all there on this one.
well, the county's position, and if you go down, it supports the need for, the soil survey and stuff, supports prioritization of survey and mapping, ecological sites at position. And then this last bullet, before we put that last bullet in there, just say it's the county's objective
That the
for
program,
management programs and initiatives that improve watersheds versus a position. It's more of an objective.
I think your point to, maybe reformatting and having objectives and just breaking it out differently with different words, like you're saying, is it actually, I'm not saying it's necessary, but it would open it up even greater. It would allow for other options, like you mentioned, to meet those objectives.
Yeah.
This might be inclusive enough, but I could see that being one way you make this even a broader, more inclusive document, like Troy brought up at the beginning as well. that could be the advantage of
Right.
different sections within the resources.
Well, as we go through those, I mean, that's a great point because, I mean, this is the first one on the soils. And if there's something in here that's, I think what you're saying is there's positions.
Yeah.
And there's
There's
objectives
objectives.
where we want to get.
Yeah.
And so we separate this last one out into an objective.
Yeah.
Promote, maybe an objective, promote management programs and initiatives that improve watersheds. That's our objective.
Yeah, if I could add a couple things here. One thing I guess I haven't seen, and I think this is pretty well written, that there's nothing stated in there about our largest loss of soil, and that's catastrophic wildfire. And, can we put something in here to help push on the feds, and so they're not building an 80,000 acre box around some drainage to send all the silt down the river? Or, can we form something?
I was trying to get at that too, but we address erosion here, that how do you not get pointed, how do you leave it open-ended?
That's a good point, yeah.
There's the thing, we have at the next meeting, forest and fire management, in which.
And this needs to be showcased in soils, water resources, and mostly in the fire management.
Yeah.
But I think it should be stated that that is our biggest loss of soil. And it will be one of our biggest influences on poor water quality.
Or at least the statement that fire management is an objective for soil health in Beaverhead County, just so that it's a reference to the fire management section. And like you said, it's gonna be there
I
in the
think it
water
needs to be
section, just so that it's,
Showcase it a little bit in all three of those.
right,
Yeah, that was my thought, that the soil is everything. Whether we've got erosion, we've got catastrophic fires versus controlled burns out there, whether we have livestock grazing that puts, fertilizer on the ground and creates wildlife habitat because it's taken off the dry grass so that the new shrub, grass comes up for the wildlife. But there's one thing in here that I was kind of surprised that I think should be, and maybe it's a new category we put in, we get down towards the end, is weeds.
Yes.
yes.
I just didn't, I don't know why it was never in here, but it's very important.
There's a little bit in the growth policy addressed, but
There is.
very, very little.
The off-road part, the erosion and weeds are a new thing. It's off-road activity and that's where.
Well, and the catastrophic fire and the runoff and stuff, when there's no vegetation, the mudslides and stuff, and it's really on the forefront now with, what's going on in California. And of course, others, it's mountainous stuff. It's not so much Minnesota or Florida, but it's any place you have mountains and stuff. So maybe we ought to, I'll get a weed deal on this, for another category as we go through. There'll be time probably in our April meeting. We've only got a couple of topics that are April meeting. So with that change in soil, move into objectives.
So there is a noxious weed management plan for the county. Amber Bird should have it. She's out this week, but next week she'll be back.
Is that on a document or link?
I don't know where it is.
I found there's a link back.
Oh,
I've seen them. And, the whole deal about this. So there's the appropriate words about that. But if you want to get into the noxious weeds, you probably should get into the invasive water species as well, since that's a big hit on our recreation.
Probably all in that document.
It's not the invasive weeds one, so there's a separate, because it's a different bunch, yeah.
But that may be a whole other section you want.
Exactly, I think it's a whole other section in their water that we'll need to add.
Okay.
Could,
Do you have, I was gonna say the water, we got wild scenic rivers, emerging mineral. Yeah, we don't really have water. We've got water resources here in this one. So what you're saying on the water
That's
resource
just
one,
another element of water resources.
with that change in the soil and making that last bullet, the county's objective is to promote management programs and initiatives. Is that good with the committee?
Yes.
Move on from soils.
Oh, folks,
I was just gonna say, just on that first bullet point on soils, where it says the protection of, on the second sentence, the protection of soils from wind and water erosion, could it be from wildfire, wind and water erosion? That way it's
Yeah.
included, just a little place to throw it in.
Yep. I think that's a good idea. So we're gonna put wind, fire, well,
Wild,
let's see, that's
Wildfire, wind and water.
from wind and water erosion, wildfire. No, that doesn't work out. Somehow wildfire's gotta get in there.
Oh, yeah, because you want to keep the wind and water as erosion.
Wildfire, wind, and water erosion.
Yep.
Water caused by.
So wildfire, comma, wind, and water erosion, and the maintenance of fertility are critical to sustaining a viable agricultural economy, sustaining wildlife populations, and high levels of air and water quality. I think the wildfire really adds to the air quality that's being mentioned in the latter part of the sentence, and the wildfire definitely has a huge impact on air quality. So I'll make sure that that gets into that.
The protection of soils from threats such as wildfire, off-road use.
Oh, that's a good one, yeah.
Stuff like that. It just, I don't want to beat this document up so much, but just maybe a mention of threats such as.
Wildfire.
I think we'll probably address OHD in the recreation portion.
Yeah.
And that's transportation. And it's actually in two different places, off-highway vehicles, OHV, and transportation, both those meetings, March 25th and April 8th. Is there anything else on the soils?
Troy,
Yeah.
maybe you were getting at this, but I thought it would be nice to have somewhere in there, maybe it's that last bullet where it gets more directly at improving soil health. Like, there's nowhere where it says like just improve soil health.
That was gonna be my comment.
Okay.
And my comment is something about recycling of nutrients back into the soil to improve soil health, i.e. Woody biomass, vegetative biomass.
Yeah.
Something
I
like
came up
that.
with a bunch of that information, I just didn't know, how much detail we want to add, if you can put it in a word or two.
And then on the record, I want to say that I am not representing the BLM or Forest Service here in any way. So I just,
So Jay asked
I
for-
want that on the record.
It's recorded. We are being recorded, so
Okay.
this will be a link you can rewatch yourself. You inserted that language where?
As another bullet point.
As a
Oh,
project.
it's separate,
Yeah, he was recommending it as being another bullet point.
okay.
Anywhere in there, I think it'll be fine, but soil health is definitely a big part of that.
And I didn't know how to say it other than recycle nutrients back into the soil.
Yeah, I mean, my idea was that last bullet, and I don't know how much you want to do this together or just kind of wordsmith this later. But management programs and initiatives that improve soil health properties, and then in parentheses, physical, biological, and chemical, for mutual benefit of wildlife and livestock, will be emphasized. So I basically lumped improve watersheds, forests, and increase forage into improving soil health. Because if you improve, this is the soil section, improve soil health, you're gonna improve all those resources. But that was my comment on, or my thought on that edit.
So with what JS said, if we put another bullet in there, it would be under objectives, not position.
I would say it'd be fine to be under objectives. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Same statement.
It sounds to me, JS, like you had that written out.
That I had it written out?
Yeah, or did you just say that?
No, I when I looked through these like 2 weeks ago, I just want to make sure that we improve the soil health. One way is with woody biomass left on the soil, and of course vegetative biomass, which is pushed into the soil by hoof action from ungulates, cows, sheep, whatever it may be.
That's getting into the science. I started that, I ended up with a whole paragraph.
Did you?
So probably just add an objective, throw that in like you guys.
Yeah, soil.
Yeah.
soil
Yeah.
awareness.
You could put appendix or something because
This is management programs and initiatives. What JS is saying, I think Sean supports that, is an action. It's not a program, you're not looking at a management program, but what you're looking at is our objective is this action to increase soil productivity.
I think.
But I kind of wanted to get the biomass, vegetative biomass in there and the hoof action from ungulates. And then also on the forestry management side, you can use woody biomass to really improve your soils as well. So however you want to wordsmith it is good with me.
I thought,
Or leave it out or whatever.
I thought how Sean said it was pretty close to
I think that's good.
what we want.
I think you're spot on, JS, with the methods and how we get there. If you just leave it, improve soil health.
Yep.
And you can ask our management agencies to do actions that would improve soil health, which are all the above, including grazing.
Yeah, and I think improve the soil health or wherever, maybe at the end of that sentence, the examples of how you do that, the biomass and woody debris and those things, such as kind of give them a, help in what they could do, little guidance. Okay, I'll make sure that gets in there, and that'll be under objective. And JS is going to send me the language.
Oh, okay. For Sean.
It's your committee.
I'll work with JS, we'll be a little.
Yeah. We'll go to the brewery and we'll figure it out.
It's been a good day on the time figuring out what.
Okay, so I'll put down JS and Sean, you're gonna send that to me whenever you get it. I can put it in there. And what we'll do is we'll have that edited document. And then at the next meeting, we'll just review what we're going through today. So we finished up with soils. And now we go to air quality. That looks like there's something about 10 bullet points. So, I think, is there any mean, in the last one, we added objectives for like an action. Again, this is the county's position. These are position statements. Is there any of the position statements that you think should be an objective? Do you think we need objectives in the air quality? Or do you think that air quality covers about everything?
So what the problem I had with this section was actually that it says at current level, which, what's current level? So I would have removed anything about current level, because it doesn't actually establish what that is. And there's several baselines and stuff in there. Okay, that's not gonna work. To me, the objective is to maintain air quality in compliance with state and federal standards specified in Montana and federal Clean Air Acts to ensure the health and well-being of Beaverhead County residents. And then you take out a whole bunch of that other stuff. I ended up then with just, I think, 4 objectives left. There's something like all priorities then became all air quality studies undertaken on behalf of the public land management agency or the state must be coordinated with the county to maintain high air quality. The county must work to protect the area's air from degradation from non-area sources. Mitigation must be implemented to reduce or eliminate impacts of activities that would result in exceeding state or federal air quality standards, and all field development plans must provide for air quality monitoring. Something like that. So that was just a different approach to the same things, trying to consolidate things together.
I think everyone.
You mentioned state and federal standards,
Yeah, DEQ and Clean Air Act.
which is in here.
Yeah, that's what I said. I just reworded it and lumped them slightly different. So it's, as I say, it's mostly there, except that you can't say to keep it to a current standard, a baseline, if you don't actually provide what that is. And it's set by state and federal standards. And in some cases, the state is higher than the federal, so what you want is to be adherent to the highest standard.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta follow the highest standard, which the state is higher than the
And the
feds.
state monitors it, so they're monitoring it. And all we want to make sure is, I mean, somebody mentioned, oh yeah, if we found oil and gas here, well, you want to make sure that something new that comes in is not going to ruin your air quality, for instance. So they need to be adherent to those standards.
So I think what we're gonna do on this one is this first bullet. We're gonna cross out at its current level. So maintaining county's air quality is critical to the health and well-being of the residents.
Then you need to specify what. So that's why I would specify in compliance with state and federal standards specified in Montana and federal Clean Air Acts.
I think I'd rather leave the bullets in there rather than combining them all together.
Well, that's just one. It's just actually saying what's your standard. All I've done is specified what the standard is.
I think you could just change it to maintaining the county's high air quality. I mean, if you didn't want to be overly specific, because the current level is kind of problematic from a legal standpoint. So you could generalize it so that you are just cutting out the current level and saying that you want to maintain the county's high air quality or quality.
But high doesn't quantify it either.
No, but it leaves room to fight about it in court.
I think compliance with the standards also does that.
Yeah.
I think current levels in there because they're trying to support current law. And if you change it to the federal and state law, we're agreeing with whatever new standards they come out with in our as a policy. So I think that's why, and I don't know how to, but I think that's why current level is in there. They're okay with the laws now, but they'd like to have a say on anything that changes in the future.
So it's your position that you would leave the current level in as what you're defining it as?
I think that could be rewritten to probably cover both things, but I don't know how to do it sitting here. Because the point isn't to defer to the Fed's decision-making, it's to have our input into it. I don't know how to,
But the only choice is if the county standards are higher than the state or the federal, then you can invoke the county standards. Is my understanding of the law. I'm not a lawyer. You are, so.
Can't lawyer.
but if they're coming out with new standards, the county has an opportunity to comment on those. And
The
then-
only problem with current levels is if it were to go to court, right now, it would be, let's look up July 2010, what was the air quality, done. That is what this
That's what
document
current,
says.
yeah.
That-
Yeah,
That's-
July 2010, like if that was a fire season, like.
How I read that sentence is they're looking at what we're looking outside, current level of air quality. Has nothing to do with the standards that are out there. Well, then when I go down here to, and this is the strongest statement that I think is valuable in here, is mitigation must be implemented.
Mhm.
That's the county's position, you know. There might be something in here where the county would want to have an objective to reduce risk of catastrophic fire that degrades air quality, which would then support fuel reduction and fuel breaks, wildland fire later on in the document. But maybe we should put something in air quality that would be an objective. And that would direct the Forest Service or the BLM land managers to move towards activities or actions that would reduce the risk of poor air quality, so to speak. That would be an objective in here rather than a position. I think the positions are okay. I still am a little bit, this current level that's up there could be read two ways, you know? And so it's almost like you kind of want to get rid of the current level because it's kind of confusing as to, you know, what do you mean by that? It's kind of ambiguous. So, you know, you could read it either way. It's kind of a attorney's dream.
But then it goes to the baselines, which isn't equally one, but it must be stopped. So there's two things in there which are equally ambiguous.
The current level, you could do like she suggested and put it inside the state and federal standards. And also as of whatever the most recent update is, so that you have the opportunity to comment on a future change.
And you can amend that every year when it's reviewed.
When there's a, yes, yeah, good idea.
That's an excellent idea.
And then you're not just drug along with whatever the state and feds want to do.
Yeah, that works.
So maybe we change the last bullet to an objective. Is that kind of where we're going?
So the objective is basically to maintain air quality at this law dictated at a particular date. And so that if it changes, we're hooked to that.
Well, we could leave that as a position, that last bullet. What you're talking about, an objective.
That's the objective. That's the objective, is that our air is as clean as required by law.
Okay.
According to a law of a particular date, in case it changes and somebody says, oh, we don't actually need clean air anymore. We're
Well,
just gonna
you have
burn
the
baby bird.
opportunity to comment on it.
Yeah.
Instead of just
Yeah,
being drugged with
exactly.
the state or feds.
Or the opposite, if they come in and they say, wait, you don't have to have clean air at all, and our
Exactly.
animals need clean air.
I like that idea. really.
Well, I know that the federal agencies coordinate with the health department and, when they do burns on hazardous smoke and what agency do they coordinate? Health and Human Services
DEQ.
before they do a burn?
Yeah, DEQ.
And the health department.
Yeah, DEQ has on their website the
Yeah,
little dots with the
Yeah.
air quality monitors.
that's them.
So they do coordinate with them. So you'll write up
I
that,
will send this to you, what I've got, and I will add the date to it for the relevant DEQ and Federal Clean Air Acts. And so that it's tied to an act.
Well, it's a standard that can be enforced. I think
Exactly,
she
but it's
said.
enforceable, yeah.
So,
and that will be an objective.
That will be the objectives, to
Okay.
make in compliance with that.
And you will send that to me.
I will.
Everybody has my email. Okay. Okay, with that objective added, and then are we in agreement to remove current level? I just think it's kind of confusing. So that's gonna read maintaining the county's air quality critical to the health and well-being of the residents. Maintaining position, high level of air quality, position. And then you mentioned something about baseline.
No, just that this has another one of those baselines must be established. That means that you could go above it or something. I think if you've already stated that you're gonna be in compliant, you don't need to talk about a baseline.
I don't see it not even gonna hold it off if we were gone. Did we lose anything if it was gone?
No, that's my point, just take it out.
I don't think I would.
I don't think I would,
Why is that?
because I think that if you had, like, for instance, the refuge come in and say like, oh, we're noticing that such and such an animal isn't doing very well, and we think maybe it's an air quality baseline issue. I think it's important. This says that no baseline can be created without the full participation of the county. So
Yeah.
I think it's important because this is saying if an agency comes in and wants to create a new baseline
Yes.
for an area, a specific area within our county, they can't do that without us.
Without coordinating with the county government.
Right.
Yep.
So I kind of think it's important for how many
I
different
would agree with
agencies operate in Beaverhead County.
So, the way it's written, I don't read it that way. What you say makes sense to me. How would you reword that sentence to say what you just said?
I honestly, that makes,
Yeah.
Any new air quality baselines?
yeah, any air quality baselines for the area must be established and
Kind of is covered in the next one too. I mean, they talk about a deviation.
Exactly.
I wouldn't take it out. I think it covers our butts.
I think it does too. The word in that sentence that I like the best is must. You know?
Yep.
Must be established with full participation of the county. They can't just come in and arbitrarily create some sort of baseline without coming to the county and saying, hey, we're thinking about doing this. And the county may say, well, I don't think so. Or, yeah, that sounds good to me. But at least you got your local government that's there.
The refuge is not talking about changing air quality. I don't want to start that rumor. I'm so sorry. I just used it as an example because they're my neighbor.
Pittsburgh gets on the record.
I
now.
The other thing that's, I think is important too, is, you know, I think that this county should have a little bit of input on the air that's coming out of Idaho.
Yeah,
you know,
I agree.
which is just non-area sources.
that's right. And that belongs in
And
there.
so I think that that's an important thing. That's a position of the county. And field development plans provide for air quality monitoring. Data development must be coordinated with the findings. Studies undertaken on behalf of public land management agency or the state must be coordinated with the county. And that kind of goes back to the baseline. If they were to develop a baseline, got to coordinate it with the county.
Can you explain what a field development plan is? Or is it just all development plans?
Field development plans must
I know, but
provide for
what-
air quality.
What do you
monitoring.
consider a field development plan? As opposed to a development plan?
Let's say that you were, say that you were gonna do a prescribed burn, would be a field development plan. Say that you were going to do a mining
Yeah.
activity. Say that you were gonna do some sort of oil and gas development, say that you were gonna do some sort of biomass electric energy production generator. That would be field development plan, a development within the field. And if it has a potential, which DEQ has their regulations, of course, State Clean Air Act Fund. Air quality monitoring, I mean, if you look at Colstrip down there, if you look at any kind of industry, Trident and Gallatin down there, they got air quality monitoring on all their stats, you know. So this just says, data development must be coordinated with findings.
I know, but what, is a field development me plowing up my alfalfa and putting in mulch partly, because it's a field.
It's an ambiguous term, and I don't think it's well understood by everybody. I was in the oil and gas, and I know what I use field development for. You've given me a bunch of other ones. Farmers use it
You're
for
looking at an
something.
oil field
Yeah,
development.
exactly, and so I'm just making sure that if we use the term, that we either say exactly what it means, like give examples, for instance, or in that case, to me, it's ambiguous, and I would have a hard time understanding what it was telling me.
I think you're right, and that term usually applies to oil and gas development.
Exactly.
Gravel pits would be another.
And I don't know what data development is.
So how about
It's just
in front
a
of-
funny word, it's a funny couple of sentences.
How about in front, after all, in front of field, we put energy?
That excludes your
But that is,
controlled burns then.
exactly,
And landfills, like that,
Carry somewhere else.
all well,
it could just be all development plans. Yeah,
yeah, you don't want that either.
exactly, so it's, how do you define it? What are we really after?
I don't know if we want to place any more regulations or to support any more
Exactly.
limitations of our federal agencies to do action on the ground.
You can say all degradation activities,
As far as prescribed.
air quality activities.
Is it,
Industrial.
Industrial is a good place.
Except for burning, like, you'll burn the
To go back to,
sagebrush.
yep,
so take field out and put industrial?
I don't think so.
mhm.
Well, industrial field developments, but I see what you're saying.
Oh,
You know, when this was put in here, there's probably a few in the room that worked on it. What was the intent? I mean,
I think that last bullet covers the prescribed fire concern.
Yeah.
On the bottom line,
The very last bullet.
Yeah, I
covers
agree.
Other activities.
I agree.
I think
so I think there's one important thing in this bullet, that's not any of the other bullets, and that's air quality monitoring. So I don't know how you cover, I mean, it doesn't, maybe,
Is it implied that, well, it's implied that this is a federal development, all field development. It's implied because of what this document is, that we're talking about federal and state. And so, I think because of the implied use of the document, that it's clearer than it seems at first glance, because it seems to me like it's saying if the federal government comes in on part of the federal land and they do something that requires air quality monitoring, they have to do it. We're holding their toes to the fire. And maybe I'm mistaken, but because of what this document is, it feels like maybe what's missing is the implied subject, which is the federal or state government doing activity on federal or state land.
It sounds like we're talking about projects that require some level of environmental analysis under MEPA or NEPA, or,
Exactly.
but probably not categorical exclusions, but the other stuff that
Yes.
a forward-looking analysis should, and then that.
so how about, I mean, I can work on this so we can move along when we get done in a timely manner. I'm just gonna put this out there. All field development plans that may affect air quality must provide for monitoring.
Yes.
So that we're specific to air quality on plans that would have an action that could possibly affect air quality. Right now, this is all field development plans must provide for air quality. And that seems like, well, what if the plan doesn't have an air quality issue associated with it? What do you do in air quality monitoring?
So I think the intent was specifically to oil and gas development, just because the industry standard term field development plan is kind of oil and gas. I think that's the missing subject or the, action. I think that was the intent of the bullet originally, if you want assumption, why it's left so vague.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I put in there, all field development plans that may affect air quality must have a monitoring.
And may affect gives both sides the ability to argue their position. So I think that's a nice open-ended, everyone's happy on both sides with that.
Yeah. Me should, I'll wordsmith that, put that in there, and we'll be able to look at it. Is everybody okay with the? Where you at, everybody? Air quality portion. Go on to water resources. See if we can- The county's position. Is there any of these bullets in here that would be better as an objective? Make it stronger? Hey, you want to have any changes to any of these bullets or additional bullets? That goes back to the water rights. When the forest in 1905 was put in reserve, and the forest will argue this, there was a certain amount of water rights that went to the forest to maintain basically the forest, but over the years they tried to take more. So state law, which that's the first bullet, is Montana law and prior appropriation doctrine. First in time, first in right. Also beneficial use, point of diversion. The third bullet, protection and development of water resources. There's been some issues around the country about maintaining reservoirs, conveyance facilities, head gates, what kind of equipment you can use in specific areas, sometimes wilderness areas, sometimes wilderness study areas, sometimes roadless areas. I think it's the county's position that that they want, the protection of these water resources and development of the water resources are essential. And if the federal government wants any water, they got to go through the state water appropriations system, and hopefully the DNRC would stand up and help protect water right holders with valid water rights. So it should reflect serious consideration of the proper optimization of yield and water within the watershed's ecological capacities. Proper management of public land watersheds that supply the majority of agriculture, domestic, industrial water use in the watershed area is critical. An adequate supply of clean water is essential to the health of the county residents and the continued growth of the economy. Agencies must analyze the effective decisions on water quality, yields, and timing of those yields. Actions, lack action, and permitted use that results in significant or long-term decrease in water quality or quantity will be opposed. And I think that has to do with fires and the significant impact of wildfires on water resources and timing. And it also has to do with, we can get into that in forestry, but if your canopy is too thick and increase your transpiration of water that doesn't hit the ground, doesn't recharge the groundwater, water quality, quantity, timing, all of those can give a little bit of teeth in this to the county in reducing fuel loads and potential for catastrophic fire. Agency actions analyze the impacts on facilities such as dams, reservoir, delivery system monitoring located on or downstream from land covered by any water related proposal. Movements toward nationalization and federal control of state water resources rights will be opposed. Privately held water rights should be protected from federal or state encroachment and coerced acquisition. Quality and quantity of water shall not be reduced below current levels.
That's a tough one. That's another
That
use
is
of
a
the word
tough
current. Well, and also because of climate change. So, I mean, current, what does it mean? So we don't need to argue it now, but that would be one I would say we need to reword somehow.
Well, shall's pretty strong, and maybe a better word is should.
The shall is the current and. Yeah.
I'm saying take shall out and put should.
Well, yeah.
I mean, shall's pretty tough, quality and quantity of water shall not be reduced.
Right, I get you. You're right.
No.
We probably should define what current means.
I don't think you can.
I don't think you can either.
With
That's
with
right.
environmental law right now, I think changing it to should is the best you can do.
No, I'm just, if you're to argue this in court and stuff, and the lawyer comes up and says that's not attainable.
Right.
It's simply not. But should is, please don't
Should gives
reduce
you a
it
fighting chance.
from current levels to the best you can. So I think what I'll do on that is just switch that out to should.
Because there's, like East Bench and West Bench, if they have drought years, they have drought management. They all have deductions in their water rates.
Just making a note. Okay. So if we change that to should, it's attainable, they should not be reduced below current levels. Position, it will support projects that improve water quality and increases quantity and dependability of water supply. I think that that's a awesome goal of the county. All potential reservoir diversion sites and delivery system corridors shall be protected from any federal state action that would inhibit future use. I don't know if inhibit or prevent might be a better one, but inhibit works. It will seek to amend the Wilderness Act to allow for the temporary storage of water using natural methods on existing lakes or ponds.
That's
I
kind
had a problem with. I just don't know what it is. I don't know that I understand the objective here. Is it the county's position to seek to amend? Or is it the county's position to urge the federal government to amend?
Exactly.
I'm just not sure what they're asking for.
We have water containment facilities within wilderness areas, and this says natural methods. So this is existing lakes or ponds. So I would tend to agree. I'm not sure what they're trying to amend to make it, because your water rights, if you're in some sort of, conveyance facility that comes out of a wilderness area, you get the same amount of water right as if it was non-wilderness. It's a state-owned water right for beneficial use, so.
So can we eliminate that one?
What about the dams that are in the recommended wilderness, gonna be there someday, but their dams are maintained? Is that anything to do with that?
Yeah,
That's
and that's kind of
That's kind of why that was put in.
We had quite a few that are inside the recommended wilderness area.
Yeah.
That are head gates, they take equipment in and maintain them.
Just not the ditches that start on, we've got ditches that's on our.
And you should say reservoirs instead of lakes and ponds, because lakes and ponds are kind of natural when a reservoir is constructed.
That's true too.
That's what we're talking about, isn't it?
So if we insert, I think that's good, put a reservoir in there.
I think you strike lakes and ponds and put reservoirs in.
Well, but a lot of,
There could be just.
a lot of them are existing, just like Esler.
Lakes with a head gate.
It's a lake. It's a
Okay.
lake that was actually,
Raised.
raised just recently.
Okay.
But I still don't understand amending the Wilderness Act because it's already protected. There's nothing to amend, like the wilderness already protects your water right because of other existing. I guess I just don't understand the amendment to the Wilderness Act.
Or
It has to do with the storage part of it. I'm guessing, I don't know the Wilderness Act enough to
has to
know.
do with the maintenance of
It's the
reservoirs.
maintenance, it's the
You'd think
maintenance
it would say
inside
maintenance, it
of
doesn't.
a wilderness oriented WSAs. You have to have equipment at times.
Right. Because we've got water rights in wilderness area. Our family does.
When you're asking for maintenance.
So, good question.
The federal agencies can give you a permit
Right.
to do it. They can fight fire in wilderness too. They can, put a variance and be able to do it. Most times they won't. But the policy out of Region 1, which is not, that goes back to consistency. Region 1 is using a recommended wilderness area as treating it as wilderness, as de facto wilderness.
So is that what
But
the
I don't
document?
think I don't think the county was looking to amend the Wilderness Act. So what
is
I've
it-
got,
Yeah.
what I've got here is, this is a question that I'm gonna pose to the county commission on their intent.
Okay.
If they're firm on leaving that in there, what is their intent? What are they looking at doing?
Is it amend or is it a variance? I guess that would be my question, because amend doesn't make sense. A variance
No.
makes complete sense.
I think right now, I've gone from its position, it will seek to allow for the temporary storage of water using natural methods on existing reservoirs, lakes, and ponds. So I put parentheses around to amend the Wilderness Act. And I will talk to the commission and find out exactly where they stand on that. And I'll have an answer for you at the next meeting. Because this was put in, at least 2 of the commissioners were here when this was signed.
AI doesn't find anything that would fit that thing that's prohibited under that Wilderness Act.
No.
Not that they're always right, but it doesn't find it.
No, and maybe what they were looking at is to, do maintenance or
That's what it was for.
repair.
So it's asking for
You know.
variance in order
And
to.
it's actually, they've raised the lakes up and put floodgates in for storage. And that's what they're after, is be able to maintain it somehow at that level.
Right.
Maybe the word maintenance could be put in front of temporary. to
Well,
allow for the
yeah,
maintenance of
exactly.
temporary.
Maintenance, reconstruction, improvements or something. You're talking raising the level, that's an improvement.
That's what they did. That's what's up there. And they, after the fact, they put it defects of wilderness. And, these people have a hard time getting in there. They need to have all the help they get to maintain these reservoirs.
Yes.
Well, then we'd support permits along the mechanized maintenance
Yeah.
of, is probably what we're.
Well, that's what you're after.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Gary,
Yeah, so within that sentence, we're gonna do the maintenance, reconstruction, repair portion within that, and you mentioned permits.
Well, we want a permit rather than amending the Wilderness Act.
Yeah, that's,
Well, thanks, everybody.
well, you bet, thank you.
Thank you all.
So within that, I mean, it says Wilderness Act or whatever, but within this forest out here, we've got wilderness, we've got wilderness study areas, and then we've also got recommended wilderness. So the question would be to do those permits, allow for those permits within those 3 categories, land use categories.
So that's what I would say.
Okay. So I will wordsmith that up to include those other 3.
Could we also get some clarification? I mean, it's saying using natural methods. Are we considering a dam or a head gate to be a natural method of water retention? That word is unclear to me. Where that natural methods stems from.
Well, and that's the thing too, if you wordsmith the first to allow further repair, reconstruction, maintenance on those, for the temporary storage of water.
It's almost like it should be low impact rather than natural.
So I found a document by the University of Montana that says it says under appropriate conditions determined by the Chief Forest Service, grazing of domestic livestock, development of water storage, projects which do not involve road construction and improvements necessary for the protection of the national forest may be permitted, subject to the restrictions of the Chief Forest Service. So, and it's on page 384 of that stupid document. Sorry.
Good catch.
Anyway, so according to this, that if it's, as long as it's approved by the chief and it's not using, so it couldn't have construction or whatever, it'd have to be natural, then you could store
Now,
water.
these are all constructed,
Yeah, so that would,
and they've got roads going to it.
yeah, it can't involve road construction and it just can't involve road construction. So if you carried it in on a mule on a back, you could. There you go.
So what if we switch up that whole bullet and, you know, the county supports permitting for repair, construction, and maintenance,
That's what this says,
Oh.
permitting.
water containment facilities in reservoirs, lakes, and ponds within wilderness areas.
That works.
Or all areas including wilderness.
Yeah.
The state bodies just recommend it, not wilderness.
Yeah.
They're treating it as, it's recommended,
That's true.
and they lock you out, and these guys are fighting it right now. I know.
There you go.
All right, I'll wordsmith that one.
Yeah.
All proposed sale, lease, exchange, or transfer of water must be adequately considered and satisfy the county's interests and concerns and fully analyze the effect on existing groundwater, return flows, riparian, and wetlands.
Carrie. I want to run another meeting with these guys too, but I had one comment. It's actually the last bullet point on the vegetation.
Okay,
Which it talks about the encroachment of juniper, Douglas fir, and expansion of weeds and whatnot. And I agree with that, but that bullet actually covers, of course, fire prevention, our clean air, the soil, the erosion. It kind of covers all of these. And I think that that's an important one, that the county should help promote that, you know. Weeds, we talked about that once, but not just weeds to promote more grass, but I mean, the juniper and Douglas fir. I'm not sure how else to word it other than once, but maybe each of these can, that's something that we can do. It's not, you know, I mean, the feds, you have something big happen like a wildfire, and then some of these things kind of go by this wayside because of the wildfire. And if we can really prevent the emergency from happening, this is something we can do tomorrow, Anyway, that's my main comment.
and you're talking in what section?
Vegetation.
That was the bullet is in vegetation.
Page
yes.
22.
The last one, yeah.
That's next meeting.
Yeah, he's had himself.
Vegetation is? Oh, okay. I'll bring it up next meeting. But it kind of covers
Oh, totally.
air.
These things, yeah, they're all connected. And if we could make this document stronger by having it in multiple areas where they're interconnected, and wildfire's a perfect example. Fuel reduction, air quality, soil, water timing, so if we can, then they
That
got.
one, it reduces the grass, which would
Sure.
promote the, agriculture, and then it gives us more water.
No. Point well taken.
Thank you.
You bet. So, let's see, private water quality, it should not be, okay, currently used wilderness act, proposed sales, okay. Oppose any proposal that fails to benefit the county or compensate for the losses to the county or its residents. recognizes and will protect the existence of all legal canals, laterals, or ditch right-of-ways.
Carrie, I've got a, maybe in addition to that one, and allow unencumbered access for maintenance and improvements. And shall allow unencumbered access for maintenance and improvement.
You're gonna send me that link?
I can send it to you.
All right.
Yeah, ditch right of ways for the access of improvements. Just add a little bit.
There are some court cases, there's a good one from over in the Beaverhead that basically tells the Forest Service that if somebody has to get up and maintain their irrigation structure with a 345 excavator, they can do it. Actually, Duke Gilbert from Gilman here, the attorney, won that case.
Yeah.
So whatever they need to get up and maintain their water
you got a
storage. and
Valid water right in that conveyance facility, you have full right to maintain that.
Yes, you do at any time.
So,
Without a permit.
so we'll
You
put
don't need a
that,
permit. You don't need a permit.
we'll put that in that bullet.
Okay.
All federal and state mandates governing water systems shall be developed in cooperation with the county and be funded by those agencies. And there's coordination and a coordinating agency, but there's also a cooperating agency in this handbook explains the difference between cooperating and coordinating. What this says is federal and state mandates governing water or water systems cooperating puts the county at the table. Not the county developing the plan. Well, they help develop the plan, but it's not the county's plan that the federal and state has to follow the county's plan, because in the case of water resources, those are federally held water rights or state-owned water rights. But this gives the county a seat at the table in developing those. Supports livestock grazing and other managed uses of watershed and holds that if properly planned and managed, multiple uses compatible with watershed management. Endorses state water laws as a legal basis for all water with use within the county. Beneficial use is the basis for appropriation of water in the state, which is state law. It will support all reasonable water conservation efforts. Water conserved should be allocated to those persons or entities whose effort created the savings.
This has nothing to do with the cloud seeding or anything like that, but the government will get the water out of that. Right, okay, that was one of the questions.
Yeah,
Red.
you know, that's not a conservation measure.
Good.
When wetlands are created by fugitive water from irrigation system, the law requires mitigation of impacts from conservation and other projects. The creation of artificial wetlands should be considered only after all other mitigation possibilities have been analyzed. Creation of artificial wetlands is contrary to the intent of water conservation. Manager of public lands must protect watersheds with respect to water quality with the assurance that water yield will not be decreased but improved. All development plans must provide for water quality monitoring. Data development must be coordinated with findings provided to the county. And this one is all development plans, and they left field out, which in the air quality was inserted field. All water quality studies undertaken by or on behalf of a public land management agency must be coordinated with the county.
I'm not sure I agree with the statement about wetlands. I'm not a wetlands expert, but I've helped various conservation organizations redevelop wetlands in stream bottoms and, change the path and so forth to create wetlands because it does help conserve water. So I'm not sure that that's a true statement. I'm happy to check with the hydrologist. I'm not sure it's true.
Well, the thing about this is it's already gone to the Supreme Court. And so this is already
What's gone to the Supreme Court?
the wetlands discussion about whether manufactured wetlands are to be protected or not. And this is talking about a very specific thing. When someone who has water, their water gets out and it creates a wetland that's not a wetland, they cannot be forced to keep that as a wetland. And that's where.
Okay, I have no problem with that. It's the last sentence. It says creation of artificial wetlands is contrary to the intent of water conservation, which is not a true statement.
It's not connected. It's, what they're trying to do here is address what you're saying.
Yes.
This is all related just to ditches and canals. If
Right.
you, when
So-
you put a ditch in, you create a wetland, you don't have to protect it under the law.
Exactly.
But it's not worded right because the county is supporting the creation of a lot of wetlands.
Exactly. So I think that last sentence needs to be removed
Right.
because
So-
it takes away from the first part.
Removed or connected somehow.
Or put someplace else, but it's false. As written, it's a false statement.
It's also not necessary. It's just
Exactly.
not, the last little bit of it is
Just the
creation.
creation of artificial wetlands is contrary.
Creation of artificial wetlands is contrary to the intent of water conservation.
That's totally false statement.
Just take it out.
Because what's really important is the beginning of that, because
Yeah.
having a rancher be forced to conserve a wetland that's not really a wetland
So,
really
yeah.
starts to affect people's livelihoods.
For sure. We're lining the canal over in the Gallatin right now where we get our water out of it because it's created a wetland.
Mhm.
Not because it's created a wetland, but because we're losing water.
Yeah.
So actually, by not having a wetland, we increased our water and conserved water by not creating a wetland, which is just the opposite of what
Dried
this is
it up.
saying. So. Okay,
What says,
everybody comfortable with water resources?
says the creation of artificial wetlands should be considered only after all other mitigation possibilities have been analyzed. Is that the fugitive water or any wetlands that they're talking about? Because
It's all in the
It's all
same
one
sentence.
sentence.
Yeah, so it's talking about
so
fugitive water.
we're backhanded supporting mitigation as a last resort for something that the Supreme Court says
It's
doesn't
already
need to
decided.
be protected because it's,
Well, they're saying if you can't get around it, you can create it.
I know, but shouldn't we be standing with the state Supreme Court saying that if it's fugitive water creates a wetland,
It doesn't have.
it doesn't have to be
Protect.
mitigated. Its loss doesn't have to be mitigated because that's the state law. And that's clear what I think it means. I don't understand what that means some ways.
Is this implying that there's no way to fix it? Like it got created accidentally and then there's, I don't know.
Well, the water's coming from the ditch and it's fugitive water, it's wastewater. And what it says in the law requires mitigation. Now, the law is gonna require you to mitigate that water going somewhere. And all it's saying is, that the impacts, the creation of artificial wetlands should be considered only after other mitigation possibilities have been analyzed. So you can pick that water up and use it somewhere else. If you can dump it into another ditch for another user, it's wastewater. Let's try to do that before we create an artificial wetland.
Right, use the water for what it was intended rather than a wetland.
But if the water's gotta flow uphill, and you can't get it out of there,
Yep.
then the only thing you can do,
It's storage.
only after all other mitigation possibilities have been analyzed. So I guess what it's saying is if you got wastewater that's creating a wetland or whatever, can we put that to beneficial use? Is there any way we can use that water? And if you can't, I guess it's okay to create the wetland, but the wetland doesn't come under,
This is not an actual wetland.
Right.
Yes.
created by fugitive.
Designated, yeah, can't be designated.
Now it's just a carbon sink and that's great. That's what it has to be, then great.
Mud
That
hole.
makes sense.
We've all got them.
Would it, since it took so long to explain that bullet point,
We do need to rewrite it.
could we reword it to say exactly what its intent is? Like maybe, everything before that first comma makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But then after that comma, maybe say mitigation actions that repurpose that fugitive water must be prioritized before creation of an artificial wetland is.
Yeah, it's almost like it's flip-flopped.
Yeah.
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 Like,
Send me the language.
oh,
Prioritize and analyze, but
And I'll start that, and you bring that, and then. I think from the language that everybody's sending me and stuff, I can figure out where it goes in this document. I can also, access this recording to get clarification. Anything else on water resources? What we're gonna do is call it quits. It's 2 hours. That's long enough. We did not get the livestock, and that's okay. But otherwise, we start getting brain dead, and
Start.
I don't like to go that long on the meeting. Is
oh no.
You thinking this?
everybody okay with that?
I'll see you
Okay.
tonight.
That'd be great. So, I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna go right here.
I wrote up my thoughts on the grazing. As a, you think I should offer anybody a copy if they want? What do you think, Sharon?
Send it around.
Yeah, I need
Um,
that for